What's up, friends? Mindy here, and I just want to spend a moment encouraging those of you who might be in a stage of grieving. Maybe it's a recent loss, or it's been a while and it's still hurting, or it's been years and years, and maybe you find yourself experiencing like a season that reminds you of that person. We all experience grief in our life. It's part of living, is losing things. And I want to encourage you with something that God showed me recently that just brings so much comfort and joy and clarity to this grieving process. And it's all the way back in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet of God, and he lived about 700 years before Jesus was even born. And that long ago, he prophesied, he spoke of things that were to come. And let me just encourage you with what he has to say. In Isaiah 25, we're going to be in verse 7 and 8 today. He says, "He will swallow up on this mountain the covering that is cast over all people, the veil that is spread over all nations." He's saying at some point, someday in the future, our Messiah is going to come and he is going to take care of this veil that is spread over all nations. There's some sort of covering over us that's preventing us from getting to God. Hey guys, if you've been in the Gospels, in the New Testament, and you read of Jesus' death on the cross, you read that when he surrendered his spirit, his last breath on the cross, the ground shook, and the veil that separated people from the Holy of Holies, from that place where only the high priest could go, from the place where God's presence was, that veil was split in two from top to bottom, from heaven to earth. He tore, a physical veil was torn that day when Jesus died, saying, "I have removed the veil. Now you have access to your heavenly Father." But Paul even writes that this veil is still covering some people who don't believe. But the good news is, in 2 Corinthians, he said, when you turn to the Lord, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Something happens. And we get to be a part of seeing people where the veil is removed from their eyes and they can see God and experience God, and the scriptures come to life for them. That's good news. Okay, let's talk about death for a minute. That ugly, nasty word. It says next, he will swallow up death forever. There's going to come a day when death will be swallowed up forever. A day when death is just a memory. It's something that doesn't happen anymore. Guys, when we lose someone, something happens inside us and it says, this isn't right. Our spirit says it shouldn't happen. This isn't right. There's a reason for that. The reason for that grieving and that awfulness on the inside is because we weren't meant to experience death. We are eternal beings. We do live forever. And that temporary grief, that death that we experience, the loss of someone, hurts so bad and we can get angry with God. But listen, God agrees with you. He hates death also, which is why there's going to come a day where death is swallowed up forever. Isn't that good news? Guys, the reason grieving hurts is because we're not meant to experience it. Someone might say, well, a mother should never have to bury her son. You're right, she shouldn't. Some might say that person should never have been gone so soon. You're right, they shouldn't. But even the person that lives to be 105 shouldn't die either. Because we know there's something innate that God gave us, the spirit that says death isn't right. We are supposed to live forever, and that's because we do. We live forever somewhere. And guess what happens next? It says he will wipe every tear from their eyes. Guys, I just want you to picture for a moment a crowd of people, and you're there in the crowd, and Jesus walks right through every person and straight up to you. And he doesn't just say, "I'm sorry that happened." And he doesn't just hand you a tissue. He takes his very hands, the hands that made miracles happen when he walked on earth, the hands that were nailed to a cross to die for you. And he takes those hands and he wipes the tear from your eye because he loves you that much. Guys, that will happen. Isaiah prophesied of the veil being torn 700 years before Jesus came. And it happened. A real veil was torn, symbolizing the veil being torn that separated us from God. And that really happened. And just like that really happened, someday Jesus is going to wipe every tear from your eye, and death will be over, and we will live forever. And guys, that is good news. And I know it's awkward sometimes to talk about death, but it's real. And if you've experienced loss, it's a real thing in your life. And it's good to talk about the good things that happen and why we experience grief and the hope that we have for eternity. So I know this is a lot of passion for a Saturday morning, but man, I was just so encouraged when I read this, and I thought maybe I can encourage one person out there that's experienced grief this morning. And I pray that that blesses you. God bless.